So, apparently Joe Rogan has the most popular podcast on Spotify, and he's repeatedly spread COVID misinformation and invited guests on to do the same.
From Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in...
Picture this. Joe Rogan's midway through a deadlift at his compound, elk meat smoothie in hand, when his phone buzzes. He sees a clip of the View hosts calling him dangerous, claiming he believes in dragons, and basically trying to paint him as public enemy number one. Most people would rage tweet. Joe, he did something way more savage. He dropped a $100 million lawsuit on them like a tactical nuke wrapped in legal papers. And trust me, what happens next is wilder than anything you'd hear on his podcast, but here's where it gets absolutely insane. The View hosts weren't just taking casual shots at Rogan, they were literally accusing him of endangering humanity while sipping their morning coffee like they just solved world hunger with their hot takes. Joy Behar, in all her infinite wisdom, decided to announce on national television that Joe Rogan believes in dragons. Not metaphorically, not as a joke. She claimed she triple-checked it. The man who has the most popular podcast on Spotify, who interviews everyone from scientists to comedians to politicians, apparently believes mythical fire-breathing creatures roamed the earth with humans. What Joy didn't mention? The context. See, Rogan had been discussing ancient civilizations and how different cultures have dragon myths. He was talking about massive reptiles and how ancient people might have encountered crocodiles or monitor lizards and created dragon legends. But The View didn't need context. They needed a punchline. And they got one until Joe decided the joke was on them.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The View has spent years positioning themselves as the moral authorities of daytime TV. 5 women, 1 table, enough passive aggression to power a small city. They've built an empire on calling out everyone from politicians to celebrities. But they made one critical error. They went after someone who had the resources, the audience, and most importantly, the receipts to fight back. Now here's what really sparked the explosion. It wasn't just the dragon comment. The hosts systematically painted Rogan as a spreader of misinformation, someone dangerous to society. They did this while claiming their show was fact-checked by ABC News, positioning themselves as the trusted source versus Rogan's supposedly reckless podcast. Sunny Hostin even suggested Spotify should slap warning labels on his episodes. The irony? They were spreading actual misinformation about him while accusing him of doing the same. But wait, it gets better. Whoopi Goldberg, playing her usual role as the voice of reason, dropped this absolute gem. She said it was fine for Biden to throw all Republicans in jail if the Supreme Court gave presidents immunity. This is the same show claiming Rogan is the dangerous one. The same show that once debated whether the earth is flat. The same show that regularly revises history over brunch banter. And they're shocked someone finally called them out?
That's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
We're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
The human legal
But
I don't know. Hey, this is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest f***ing statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife out, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't believe
the other
Joy
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
weigh.
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles.
Rogan's response was pure genius. Instead of going on a Twitter rampage or posting angry Instagram stories, he changed his bio to Dragon Believer. That's it. 2 words that basically said, you want to play? Let's play. Then came the lawsuit. $100 million. Not a cease and desist. Not a polite request for retraction. A full-scale legal assault that had Disney lawyers probably choking on their lattes. The legal documents were beautiful in their brutality. Rogan's team didn't just claim defamation. They laid out how the View's comments could damage his Spotify deals, affect his partnerships, and harm his credibility with his massive audience. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was business. When you have an audience larger than most primetime news shows combined, false accusations aren't just insults, they're potential career killers. ABC's initial response was exactly what you'd expect from a mega corporation caught with their pants down. A carefully worded statement about reviewing their legal options, which translates to, "Oh God, please don't let this go to trial." Behind closed doors, different story, emergency meetings, panicked phone calls, and probably a lot of executives Googling, how much does Joe Rogan actually make?
With that show is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's just, it's a bizarre show.
The public reaction split exactly how you'd predict. Rogan's fanbase went absolutely nuclear. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube comment sections turned into digital war zones. Memes flew faster than you could say dragon believer. On the other side, the View's defenders scrambled to Google legal definitions while trying to explain how "it's just their opinion" is somehow a valid legal defense. But here's the real kicker. The View's own audience seemed to side with Rogan. During tapings after the news broke, the audience reaction wasn't what the hosts expected. These weren't Rogan bros infiltrating the studio. These were regular View watchers who apparently drew the line at blatant character assassination. The look on the hosts' faces when their own crowd didn't back them up? Priceless. What makes this even more delicious is the sheer hypocrisy. The View has made careers out of demanding accountability from public figures. They've called for cancellations, demanded apologies, and acted as judge and jury for countless controversies. But the moment someone holds them accountable, suddenly it's all, "we were just talking," and "it's just entertainment." Sorry, ladies, but you can't have it both ways.
Joe Rogan here. Did you see Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons, I guess? According to Joy Behar, he changed his X profile. Did you see this?
That. I did see that.
It now just simply says dragon believer. He had talked about dragons on the show. It's, you know, the thing of it is, you take anything out of context and you can make fun of it and mock it. And so, you know, let's do that. It goes without saying, Joe Rogan, how many times more intelligent do you think Joe Rogan is than Joy Behar?
Now, here's the kicker. Joe Rogan.
The real genius of Rogan's move is what it represents. For years, traditional media has operated with impunity. Talk shows, news panels, opinion pieces. They could say whatever they wanted about internet personalities and podcasters without consequence. They had the platforms, the corporate backing, and the assumption that no one would fight back. Rogan just shattered that assumption with a 9-figure lawsuit. This isn't just about one podcast host versus one talk show. This is about the entire media ecosystem. If Rogan wins, or even if he just gets a massive settlement, it sends a message. The days of consequence-free commentary might be over. Every host, every pundit, every Twitter blue check might have to think twice before making sweeping accusations about people with the means to fight back. The ripple effects are already showing. Other media personalities are reportedly being more careful with their words. Legal departments at major networks are reviewing guidelines. The phrase "alleged" is probably being used more in the past week than the past year combined. And somewhere, Joy Behar is probably wishing she'd actually triple-check that dragon comment. But here's what really matters. This lawsuit, regardless of outcome, has already won in the court of public opinion. Rogan took one of the most established shows in daytime television and made them look like amateurs. He turned their attack into content, their accusation into merchandise opportunity. Dragon Believer merch is apparently selling like crazy, and their credibility into a punchline.
People want us divided, and they aren't just here in this country. They're foreign adversaries who are infiltrating our social media because it is prudent for us to stay that way. So when you see something that really pisses you off, you should triple check that one.
Bad information that's going out
well,
there.
in defense, there are some really
But
good
it's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are some really good news kind of influencer types, and I think it's great that they're getting information about global and current events in front of younger people who maybe don't tune into traditional media. But to Sarah's point, there has to be some fact-checking and actually verification of the things that are shared, because I spend a lot of time on Instagram Reels, and I'm served up things that I get outraged about, and then I realize, oh, that's not even true. But
So what did Rogan do? He did what any...
The settlement negotiations, if they happen, will be fascinating. Disney has deep pockets, but they also have shareholders. $100 million is real money, even for them. But going to trial, that's a risk they probably can't afford. Imagine The View hosts being cross-examined about their fact-checking process. Imagine having to explain under oath how they verified the dragon story. Imagine the discovery process exposing years of internal communications. What's beautiful about this whole saga is how it exposes the reality of modern media. The View thought they were untouchable because they've been untouchable for decades. They confused their platform with immunity, they mistook their opinions for facts, and they severely underestimated someone who's built his empire on calling out exactly this kind of BS. The precedent this sets could reshape media forever. If a talk show can't casually defame someone without consequences, what happens to the entire ecosystem of hot takes and manufactured outrage? What happens when every accusation needs actual evidence? What happens when just kidding isn't a legal defense?
Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said this
on television.
You know, just let's look at a scenario where the Supreme Court says, yes, he has all those rights. He is immune from everything.
Yeah.
You know what Joe Biden could do since he is presently president?
What?
Whoa. He could throw every Republican in jail.
For Rogan, this is more than vindication. It's a masterclass in modern media warfare. He didn't just defend himself, he went on offense. He didn't just demand an apology, he demanded accountability. And he didn't just protect his reputation, he potentially changed the game for everyone who's ever been unfairly targeted by traditional media. The silence from The View since the lawsuit dropped speaks volumes. No snarky comebacks, no righteous indignation. Just careful, lawyer-approved statements, and probably a lot of off-camera panic. The same hosts who spent years judging others are now facing judgment themselves. And unlike their show, this verdict comes with real consequences. As this plays out, whether in court or in settlement conferences, one thing is clear: the media landscape just shifted. The old rules about who can say what, about whom, just got $100 million reality check. And somewhere, Joe Rogan is probably recording another podcast, knowing he just changed the game forever.
I agree that Joe Rogan is a horror. A horror.
I mean, I'm not saying that Joe Rogan should be removed from Spotify. He's got 11 million listeners. He's got a $100 million, contract as of 2020. But I do think as the podcast platform, you have to have some sort of guidelines. How about a disclaimer on his podcast that says, this is misinformation?
The next time a talk show host wants to make wild accusations for ratings, they might remember this moment. The moment when someone finally said enough is enough. The moment when consequences caught up with carelessness. The moment when Joe Rogan reminded everyone that in the digital age, David doesn't need a slingshot to take down Goliath. Sometimes all he needs is a good lawyer and the balls to use one. What happens next will determine more than just who pays whom. It'll determine whether traditional media can continue operating with impunity or whether a new era of accountability has begun. Either way, The View just learned a valuable lesson. When you come for the king of podcasting, you better not miss. And when you claim someone believes in dragons, you better make sure they don't have 100 million reasons to prove you wrong. The irony is perfect. The View spent years telling everyone else how to think, what to believe, and who to trust. Now they're the ones in the hot seat, and suddenly the rules don't seem so clear. Suddenly, just their opinion doesn't feel like such a strong defense. Suddenly, fact-checking matters when you're the one being checked.
But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point. Most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably immobile.
Right. Because their mom's taking their kids to school, and that's, yeah.
It's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
That's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones don't have to name any names, are just very dull-minded.
This saga isn't over. The legal battles, the settlements, the public relations warfare, it's all just beginning. But the message has already been sent. The age of consequence-free media might be ending. And it's all because someone decided to fact-check the fact-checkers. Someone decided to hold the judges accountable. Someone decided that if you're going to claim he believes in dragons, you better be ready to prove it in court. The funniest part? Rogan's not even mad. He's amused. He's turned their attack into content, their lawsuit into a comedy special, and their credibility into a running joke. While The View scrambles for damage control, Rogan's counting Spotify streams and planning his next episode. While they consult lawyers, he's consulting comedians about new material. This is what happens when old media meets new media and doesn't realize the game has changed. This is what happens when you confuse a platform with power. This is what happens when you pick a fight with someone who's made a career out of winning them. The View thought they were swinging down. Turns out they were swinging at someone who swings back harder.
The show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies-infested hen house.
And at the same time, it seemed like the most interesting part was their audience seemed to be on my side.
Yes.
And that's their audience.
Yes. Well, their audience is not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows.
As the dust settles and the lawyers circle, one thing becomes crystal clear. The media landscape will never be the same. The old guard just got a wake-up call delivered by a podcaster who refuses to play by their rules. And honestly, it's about time someone reminded them that in the arena of public discourse, even the judges can be judged. So the next time you see a talk show host making wild claims about someone, remember this moment. Remember when Joe Rogan decided enough was enough. Remember when a $100 million lawsuit shut down the gossip mill? Remember when the hunter became the hunted and the accusers became the accused? Because this isn't just a lawsuit, it's a revolution. And it started with 2 words, dragon believer.